Hey, thanks for checking out this podcast. Our hope is that it's an encouragement to you, that it builds your faith, that it helps you be a better leader and a better influencer in and through your life. If this is helpful to you, we'd love you to subscribe and also share it with somebody else to encourage them too. Thanks. I'm excited to be doing this.
Yeah, so this is my I don't know who's hosting this. We're hosting it.
We're together. We're a
our
team.
Guests.
Yeah.
So this is Pastor Dan.
And this is Pastor Jeremy.
I am, and you are. What are we talking about today? I think we're talking about Church Unleashed.
Yeah, so we just did a series, right? As a church, we called it Church Unleashed and preached away. You preached this Sunday, and so now we're kind of piggybacking on that theme and taking some time to chat about it.
Yeah. So, talk to me about this Church Unleashed theme. Like, talk to me about what brought you to that spot to take us there as a church. Talk to us through some of your favorite ideas in the midst of it. Like, what's the heart?
So part of it is that this has always been who we are as a church. We don't go to church, we are the church, right? And we're not consumers, we're contributors. So every person in our church is a minister. And I love that term, Church Unleashed. It's actually Pastor Barry who sent me an email, and we were talking about some of these themes around our church, and he used that term, and I thought, that's it, that's the term. But the real dream of this came not just from our church culture and what we do all day, but COVID and the whole COVID reality. So the idea is that with COVID, the doors of our church have been locked many Sundays lately because we're doing church online only. Yeah. And then you think, what the heck? What does that communicate? What does that mean? And my prayer is that out of that we can be awakened to this reality that the church isn't just a Sunday for an hour deal, but that the church is the church every day, all day, wherever we go. Mm-hmm. And so that's the theme of Church Unleashed.
Yeah, and I love how Pastor Barry made the theme of Church Unleashed, and I know we talk about this as a staff kind of around the table, how a lot of things kind of came together for our season, and each one of our staff kind of brought their own spin to this season as a church. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, well, one of the fun things about doing church as a team is that everybody brings their heart, their passion, their prayer, and so every time I'm talking to anybody, every email I get, every Facebook message I get, every phone call, I'm listening for what's the Spirit saying, because we're a body. So yeah, every staff meeting and every prayer gathering, it's like, everything that's being said, we're all sort of listening and discerning together and influencing each other. So definitely a big part of this Church Unleashed piece is all of us discerning together, and actually right now is the beginning of a new year as well, 2021. Yeah. So that was part of the whole thing, is the beginning of a new year, you're listening, you're discerning, and this is what we felt God was saying to us, was that everyone in the church has gifts, and that everyone in the church needs to be using those gifts, not just in a church as building setting, but in our homes, in our workplaces, in our schools.
Yeah, and we just finished this past Sunday. We were talking about the parable of the talents in Matthew.
Yep.
And how that relates to using your gifts and using your opportunities and making the most of each opportunity. I know we wanted to talk about that passage. Why don't you introduce us into there?
Well, it's a great passage, and of course Jesus is such a great communicator, right? And he talks through stories often, and so this is one of the stories or parables that he tells. And the context is actually end times, right? So it's kind of an exciting, the disciples are like, Jesus, what's that? When are you going to return? And all the, this end time stuff. And Jesus has some pretty cool stuff to say about that. And, gives you that sort of sense of anticipation. But then he tells stories, back to back to back, these parables. And the stories are around the theme of being ready, right, for Jesus to return. But also on stewarding your life right now, that one day we're going to stand before God and give account for the lives that we lived and taking advantage of the opportunities we have. So that's where this parable comes in, and we have different terms for it. In my Bible right here, it calls it the parable of the three servants. So should I just read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Read it in.
So again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He gathered together his servants and trusted his money to them while he was gone. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities, which I thought you did a great job preaching about that on Sunday, so people can go back and listen to that. The servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money, earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. But the servant who received 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master returned from his trip, called them to give account of how they had used his money. The servant whom he had entrusted 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, "Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I've earned 5 more." The master was full of praise. "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in handling this small amount. Now I'll give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." The servant who had received 2 bags of silver came forward and said, "Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I've earned 2 more." The master said, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in handling this small amount. So now I'll give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." Then the servant with 1 bag of silver came and said, "Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops where you didn't plant and gathering crops that you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here is your money back." And the master replied, "You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew how I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it." Then he ordered, "Take the money from this servant, give it to the one with 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But those who do nothing, even what little they have, will be taken away. Now throw this useless servant into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Wow, quite an ending.
Yeah. So we're not talking about investing. We're not talking about stocks, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the parable part. It's not GameStop to the moon. It's not necessarily about investing money. So what's it about? What's the key bit there, you think?
Well, I think it's people's lives, right? Jesus is telling us to be ready for his return, that we're going to give account one day. So the parable is money, but what does that parable symbolize? Well, it's my daily life, right? God's given me, so many days, so many minutes, and so much influence, gifts to steward before him, and one day we'll give account.
Yeah, and I love how the direction of this passage, I think a lot of us sometimes can get a view of the church that we're supposed to live out our days and be faithful, and which is good, but I think a lot of our picture of it is not risk-oriented,
right,
to using what we're good at and going out and using our abilities. I think a lot of people's idea of Christianity is peace, joy, comfort, which is good, but we sometimes don't have a forward motion in with it, that we're going somewhere. Right. That the kingdom's here, we're content with it. So
we think the kingdom is just be a nice person.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Be nice.
Be nice, and then you're a good Christian. If you be nice for your life, you did well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rather than taking the gifts that you have and going towards a goal with it.
Right.
And it's not even just fill this cog. You're not just a piece in a machine where you come and bring the talent you have and then go home. It's a forward motion that you're investing.
Right. There's a multiplying factor to it, right? There's which scares me, honestly. I read this parable and I'm like, I don't want to just barely do enough with my life, or just get by, or just be a nice guy and then die and be like, Jesus, I was a decent person. I buried my talent. I didn't lose it, But the ones who get rewarded in this parable are the ones who invest and multiply it. And I don't know, the way the parable ends terrifies me. The way it ends is this guy gets thrown out, right, to where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, and he's called a wicked and lazy servant. Mm-hmm. And yet, in my initial reaction, I don't think he's that bad. He doesn't seem like he did anything wrong per se, right? He was just a nice guy.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I look at that passage, I actually notice a couple things where he maybe isn't.
Okay.
This guy.
Yep.
So I love that Jesus always goes after the heart.
Yep.
And when the master talks to this guy, he says all these nasty things about his business practices. I don't trust you. I think you're not a good guy.
Right.
And so he buries it, and even the master comes back and he mentions, you could have even given it to the bank.
Right.
Like, you did less than the bare minimum.
Nice. Okay.
He did less than the bare minimum by burying it instead of entrusting it to someone else. Like, he didn't even ask for help. He was disinterested with the goal of the master.
Right.
And at least that's how I read it. I think there's some clues there.
Well, I think that's huge.
Being
It's
lazy,
huge.
even in that, like, he's wicked and lazy.
Right.
Right.
And his perspective of the master was that the master was harsh. That the master was a bad guy.
Right.
Which is fascinating. And he turns out to be like that, even though he's not trying to, right? I don't think he's intentionally, just hiding or whatever. But our view of God has such a huge impact on how we relate to our gifts, how we relate to life. And his view of his master was, you're a harsh man, you're demanding, this and that. And it's really easy to relate to God that way and think that's who God is. And these other guys had a different perspective, right? The guys who risked and who invested and who multiplied the potential of what they had. I wonder what their view of the master was. The story doesn't explicitly tell us, but implicitly, it's probably the opposite.
Well, they're good and faithful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Good and faithful.
Instead of lazy and wicked.
Like,
so
if we flip that to our perspective of God.
Yeah.
Do I believe fundamentally that God is good and faithful? Or do I believe fundamentally that God is wicked and lazy? Right.
That's like, I think the key there is how we view God with our gifts and whether we trust Him when we use it.
Right. So what I do with my life is a reflection probably of how I view God. And if I can change my view of God, then I will, if I see God as good and faithful, then I will see my life as this exciting adventure, right? That I can risk with and that I can do great things with and I can impact the world with, rather than as this, oh man, I'm going to be judged and, I better, hide and run. And that turns me into a clinging mentality to life. And instead of an abundance mentality, I have a scarcity mentality. I better take all I can, hide, run, Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to using our gift, I think a big piece of it is that we need to understand that the 5 bag of silver guy and the 2 bag of silver guy added different value to the mission.
Right.
But because they both risked, they were both had the exact same reward.
Rewarded.
The reward was the same as that, well done, good and faithful servant. You've done much with what I've given you, now I'll give you much more.
Right.
And so it's based on our ability, and so that frees me up. When I think of my life, I don't know that I'm a 5 talent guy.
Right.
But I've got these 2 talents, I think, maybe 1 or 2.
Right.
And I want to use them as best I can, and not be self-conscious that I'm not as effective as this guy who's like putting stuff out every day and like going hard and things like that. He may produce more than me, but what will I do with my gift?
Right.
How can I use my gift to the best that I can?
Yeah, and I thought you did a great job on Sunday of sharing that in your sermon there, just the idea that each of us have different abilities, and that's okay. We don't have to compare with each other. We don't have to say, well, who's got more ability, who's got less ability, all this. No, it's I'm free to steward my life before God, and that's what I'm accountable for. And that was actually your first point, right? As once we got down to you had 3 applications to the message, and the first one, rephrase that for me or help me remember it.
The first one is audit your life. Look at, take inventory of your life, and the perspective on it should be that of opportunity. So what opportunities do you have in your life that you can press into and take inventory of your talents, your gifts, the people you're interacting with? How can you use the things in your life as opportunities and not just, this is what I do, this is my life?
So I look at my own life and I think, what are my gifts? What are my relationships? What are my opportunities? What has God entrusted around me? And I do sort of a life audit without being sort of afraid or comparing, being proud or envious. I just go, okay, this is what God's given me. This is what I'm called to steward. This is my bag of silver, essentially.
And not a shameful audit either.
Right.
You know, I tried to mention this as well. I think it shouldn't be a shameful practice of like, oh, I feel so bad because I'm not using these opportunities.
Okay.
You should look at it as a positive.
Yeah.
You know, first you make that decision. The yes or no question is, am I going to use my gift?
Yeah.
If yes, then let's look at what we got.
But it's a joyful audit.
It's a joyful
I love that because I tend to get do a beat myself up audit. Oh, here's another thing I'm not doing. Oh, here's another thing I'm not doing. You know, or I'm pretty good at this, but obviously I haven't done much with that, God. You know.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
I love it. Good. Okay, let me read this scripture because this is such a good example of that point. This is Galatians 6, verse who knows what, because it's the Message that I'm reading from, and sometimes they don't tell you what verse you're reading in this particular version of it. Anyway, it says this. Make a careful exploration of who you are and the work you have been given, and then sink yourself into that. Don't be impressed with yourself. Don't compare yourself to others. So I love that. It's kind of two directions you can go with that, right? And then he says, each of you must take responsibility for doing the creative best you can with your own life. I just love that. Make a careful exploration of who you are, the work you've been given, and then do your creative best you can with your own life. Each of us are responsible to take our own lives and do our best with that. And of course, each of us have different realities, right? Different circumstances, different experiences. Yeah.
You know, when I think about this, I didn't mention this on Sunday because I have a bunch of stories of people who I see kind of do this. They look at their opportunities and they make the most of it.
Yep.
I mentioned a couple people, but one person I didn't get to mention was a kid in our youth group. His name is Justice.
Yep.
And he's in junior high, and right when quarantine kind of happened about a year ago, he had just started learning how to play box drum. So he'd sit on the box, do a simple beat. And he was invested in our youth group. He was doing some tech, and he wanted to get more involved. When we went online, we asked him if he would play box drum for our live stream. And we were online for a bunch of weeks. And this kid came every single week and played box drum. And what I would hear from his dad is that he would practice every day for hours. He would practice. He had time. He was at home, and he would practice every day with his box drum. And he would invite his friends to youth group, and he didn't see much fruit for a long time. For a few months, it was just normal.
Yeah.
It was just probably week 1 and week 12 looked similar, but he kept at it. He kept using what was in front of him. And when we partially reopened and we were able to use the sanctuary for youth group, he jumped on for the drum set, and man, he did so good. He did really well. He's a great drummer. And he's coming on Sundays and things like that. And one really beautiful thing that happened is that his friends saw it. So his friends at school saw how invested he was, and that he went from using this talent that he had, and then God gave him more with this drum set. And then a couple weeks pass by, his friends come to youth group.
Yeah, wow.
And then their friends come to youth group. And then their friends start using what they're good at. Now our worship team is like 80% Justice and friends. And it's a beautiful, I think, a beautiful picture of faithfulness with this
and then multiplying. And I know Justice, of course, through Sundays because he helps in our online. One of the weird things about doing church online every week without the hybrid church or without people in person is you really get to know the team better because you're working with them so closely. And Justice is there week after week, and he's been learning position after position in our online ministry, and there's a couple of weeks where he's done. I mean, he helped me preach because he did my scriptures and so on, what we call lower thirds on the videos there, and then another week he did one of our most important jobs where he was on what we call video switcher. And here's this kid. He's a young teenager, and yet wanting to steward his gifts and using them and getting better and better at it. And that's fun. Good example. Okay, so what was the second one? So first one?
The second one is all about your perspective in your day-to-day. So looking for opportunities every day. So having Jesus eyes about your opportunities. So the first one is kind of taking a full audit of your life. And the second one is when things come, what do you do?
Okay,
when
so
you see an opportunity.
I might think my 5 bags of silver or my 2 bags of silver or my 1 is that one moment in my life where I got invited to give my testimony,
Right.
or I got invited to preach a sermon, or I got whatever, or somebody asked me about Jesus. But you're saying I should be looking in my everyday life.
Yeah. So when you pass by someone in the grocery store,
Right.
That's hard for me. You guys might think that I'm this, outgoing
yeah.
social person. I'm actually quite introverted.
Yeah.
And so when I see people in the grocery store, my body is saying, go the other way. You don't want to talk. You don't need to talk to them. They're just having a good day. But what I think of Jesus calling on my life is add value to them.
Okay.
Say hi. Smile through the
Right.
mask. And,
So one way to think about it would be Matthew 25. What does risk look like in this moment?
in this moment. Yeah.
Right. So you're walking past somebody at the grocery store. Let's
there's an
go there.
opportunity.
So are you just going to do you carry a Bible with you so you can tell that person at the grocery store through your mask about Jesus?
Maybe if that's your thing.
Okay.
If that's what your talent is.
Okay.
Kind of what you've got.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know that I'm that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's the most fruitful thing I could do there.
Right. Okay.
But maybe that's you. Maybe you do need to do
Maybe.
that. But that's not really what I'm saying.
Yep.
I guess what I'm saying is have eyes to see the opportunity. So when you're walking through the grocery store and you see them, are you even thinking about the opportunity that you've got there?
Right.
What kind of eyes do you have about opportunities? Are you looking for them? Because I think a lot of times we'll have our head down in our own little world.
Right.
And
So for me, I'll just give you my little world. When I'm walking past somebody at Safeway, here's what I'm thinking. Number one, I love the eyes because now we're wearing a mask. I try to smile at them. So that'd be my first thing. I think everybody I walk past, I try to smile at. I just think, why not brighten somebody else's day,
Totally.
right? And then I think, okay, right now it's COVID. People are scared and they're feeling weird and all of that. I'm going to respect them.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance this person, exactly, 6 feet, just be respectful, right?
Yeah.
If they come towards me, I'm going to give them a wide, go around them.
Give them the radius.
If they look stressed or angry, I'm going to, be respectful of that, whatever that is. So I'm going to add that to it. And then I might even add a little bit to that. So I've got my smile, I've got my give them respect or give them thoughtfulness. And then I'm going to add notice an opportunity. So maybe they look like they're looking for something and they can't find it, and maybe I've got an opportunity to help them. Most of the time I don't, because I don't have a clue where anything is in the grocery store. But maybe there's something. Maybe there's something I can latch onto, or maybe they're looking at pizza and I love that kind of pizza, and I can say, "Ooh, that's the best, pizza, isn't it?" Or "Wow, it's on a big sale today," or whatever. So maybe I can sneak in an opportunity there just to have a friendly conversation or a serving conversation. If they're stressed, it'd be like, "Yeah, look, it's pretty stressful today." At least I've related to them.
Yeah. Just to have that connecting point. I think connecting points are really important.
So a nice connection.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there might be an opportunity beyond that. Rarely, right? I mean, even that one's rare for me anyway.
Sure,
I can get the smile out, 80% of the time.
Maybe.
I can be respectful 90% of the time.
Yeah.
I can, but then, that extra piece of that opportunity might only happen
Right, but just be ready.
every third trip to a grocery store or something. And then beyond that, there might even be an extra opportunity if who knows, the person starts sharing something and I can say, well, I'll pray for you.
And I think something, at least for those of us who are on social media, I think when it comes to Instagram and Facebook and whatever kind of social media you're on, you'll probably see people in your life that are posting things about their life.
Yep.
And I think those are little opportunities as well. If you see someone post something like a photography thing, like they're taking pictures,
Sure.
you think a picture is nice, tell them.
Right.
That's an opportunity to encourage somebody.
Right. You just gave somebody a lift.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you used your bag of silver.
Yeah. It's a little opportunity on.
You saw something online.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yep.
And even like when someone posts something of like pictures of their kids,
Yep.
you can say, man, how big those kids are getting. Like, I hope,
Yep.
praying for you, and actually pray for them. And,
Yep.
looking for opportunities,
Yep.
I think sometimes I scroll like I'm on incognito.
Yep.
Like, no one can see me. I'm not going to interact with
Right,
anything. I'm just
right.
going to go past. And I've tried to make it like a discipline for me. If I'm looking at things that people are posting, I want to interact with it in a generous way with my encouragement.
Right. So I'm thinking about, how am I being an influence here?
Yeah.
How am I stewarding my moments, my influence? Now, the flip side of that would be the caveat, or the warning to that would be, sometimes in a moment you can feel this sort of passion rise up within you, especially social media has this amazing ability to get us to think that's our soapbox to preach something.
Sometimes it's our opportunity to shut up.
Right, right. So we all need to be wise about that too, right? We've all seen it on social media.
Use words to build up, not...
Yeah, so in a moment before you hit post or send or whatever, think and just be like, you know what, this is not my chance to make my my political statement or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Let's not.
We agree.
Yeah.
We agree.
Yeah. So another area is maybe in your home. I think for me,
Right.
you know, father, husband roles,
Yep.
way more important than what we're doing here.
Yep.
For our purview, we want to be good family men, and for those at home, family women. One way that I look for opportunities to, you know, engage with and build up my kids and my wife, and one of them is that when I pull up to go home, I've had a long day of work, I'm fried, I've been talking to people all day, I'm not ready to go in there. Like, my brain is fried, I don't have it in me. My body's telling me, go home, crash in the bed,
Sure.
ask my wife, what are we doing for dinner? I'll see you at dinner.
Yeah.
I'll be up here snoozing or whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
But that's not my call. Like, every time I go home, I actually sit in my car for a few minutes and I pray. I'm like, God, give me the strength to press in. Give me the strength to encourage my kids,
Sure.
encourage my wife.
Yeah.
And what opportunities are going to be there when I walk into the door for my home.
So that sets you up to see your home as your stewardship, as your opportunity,
Yes.
As those moments. And this is the thing, you have to remind yourself of that, and you have to bring yourself back to that again and again, right? Like this is my influence. This is my kingdom service. This is my being the church, or stewarding my talents. This is what God's going to hold me accountable for someday before Him. It's not just in your case, it's not just the sermons I preach or the teams I build or the people I pour into. It's my family that I love and care for and spend time with and so on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and so that second bit is all about looking for the opportunities in the moment and learning to have eyes to seek opportunities.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's at Safeway or the grocery store. That's at your online presence. That's at home. In all those little moments, just where daily life is taking place. And of course, it's at church too, like at a church service, or so you might be teaching a Sunday school class, or like you shared about Justice playing the drums or whatever. It's any opportunity, but it's having those eyes to see it, right? And saying, God, help me live my life with eyes that are looking for opportunities, and like you say, joyfully, not shaming,
grudgingly.
Yeah.
And I think another piece of that, I mentioned this on Sunday, but I think it's one of the most basic opportunities we have is to like and share the stuff that our church puts out. And I kind of feel bad saying that, because it's like, I feel like I'm annoying people, but I think it's really important for us, especially when like 80-90% of our impact is all online right now. We need to be good stewards of that opportunity that we have to promote the gospel.
Yeah, that's a great plug for our church, and we're all representatives of our church, right? And so if everyone finds ways to like and share and subscribe and share a link with other people, that helps our church steward its influence.
Right, and it helps them. I think that it's important to have pieces that remind us of the gospel, areas that we can stay connected to our local church, and I think it helps the people we're sending it to, and I think that's the main bit.
Sure. Yep.
Is that the gospel's good for them.
Yeah, God's going to use that.
Yeah.
And those are little seeds that we're throwing out there, and so we encourage people to do that, and
absolutely.
Yeah, use their influence.
So the third one is make acting on it a habit. So being proactive and like just doing it, like actually executing on it, do it.
Right.
So many times in my life I get to a place where I'm like, I have all these ideas.
Yeah.
And maybe I write a list of my ideas, and I don't do them.
Yeah.
I think about them, and I feel good about thinking about them. That's the thing. It'll trick you into thinking you've done them.
Right. We feel like we're accomplished by thinking of a good idea rather than by applying or living out or doing something good. Yeah.
We have to actually execute on it, and it's beautiful because those little actions. So we talk about this saying that goes around, like, make your bed in the morning,
right,
and that'll change your life. And the thinking behind that is that one little action at the beginning of the day will get you ready and get you in the mindset to act on other things.
To be action-oriented, not just thought-oriented. So current culture loves banter, loves chatting about ideas, loves coming up with thoughts, and then but doesn't love action, right? We just love saying it and then throwing it away and not doing anything about it. Right. But what I think is kind of fun is that it's easy to blame our current culture of that and to say, oh yeah, North America or Western culture, we're so idea-oriented, we're so cerebral, we don't do anything, we just talk. But the truth is that's been human nature, for thousands of years. And James 1:22 is such a great scripture for this. It'd be doers of the word and not hearers only, because that would be deceiving yourself, right? If you're just hearing God's word and just being like, yeah, I know it, I've learned it, I feel good about that, and I'm not actually putting it into action, then I'm actually deceiving myself. I'm actually not improving at all. In fact, I might even be getting worse because I'm training myself not to act on something. So that's, so we want to do daily action. Moment by moment action. We want to train ourselves that when opportunities come our way, we put the silver out rather than burying it down.
And I think a term that I saw going around the last few days is analysis paralysis. Where we spend too much time overthinking the opportunity instead of just acting on it. And I think anyone who's posting on social media, I think our social media team probably feels a bit of this, is we want to make sure it's perfect before we send it out. Sure. We want to make sure we have all the right words. When we go to a conversation, we might want to think through all the words before we go to talk to them about it. And, well, they've already passed you in the grocery store.
Okay, so I think that's huge. I think that's huge because we worry about we see some negative examples. We see people making fools of themselves, or we sometimes end up in that place. And we're like, oh, I don't want to do that. So then we don't act at all because we're afraid. But here's what I think. I think we learn by acting. So, there's this balance of, like, how do you learn to walk? Well, you stand up, you stumble, you do it again and again and again, and pretty soon you're walking. Or how do you learn to ride a bike, right? You got to have a few wobbles and, failures. So this is such a big thing in learning to be a minister of the gospel, is you're not going to get the words perfect. And you're not going to say it all exactly right. And with your spouse, with your kids, with your friends, with the person at the grocery store, with your online presence, it's see an opportunity, act on that opportunity, then evaluate. And you're going to see how you could have done it better or different, and that's okay. Then work out how you can do it better and improve. And the danger of it is you might not act at all, right? You think too much about it, and you just sit there, don't get anything done. But if you give yourself a certain amount of time to think, and that's going to change depending on the task. So for that person passing you in the grocery store, it's going to be pretty quick. You got to just give what you got. Maybe think through a little bit what you want to say, but don't drag your feet on it. We want to have opportunistic thinking. Right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to be obnoxious, right? Right. That we're like crazy. But it just means we have that little bias for action, that bias for opportunity. And so we're always sort of just pushing the envelope and not being idiots, not making total fools of ourselves, but I like it. And I know another thing is, like, with that social media bit, you might look at your words for forever. But you got to hit enter. You got to hit enter on it. You got to say that encouraging thing, message that encouragement to that person. You can't sit in your car outside your house thinking about how you're going to engage with your family for too long. Praying about it. You got to eventually step in. You got to go in your house sometime. And you know, again, back to where we started here. If God is good and faithful, then we can do that.
Yeah.
We can risk. We can look for opportunities and step out. If God is wicked and lazy, or if God is this harsh taskmaster, then we're always going to be second guessing, you know, the third and fourth and fifth time, and we will end up paralyzed too much in our lives. So.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that time bit is important too, because I think we sometimes will assume there's more time than there is with opportunities. You know, going back to a couple months ago when I preached, I talked about my dad. I, for years, had action paralysis. I had analysis paralysis on whether I would share the gospel with my dad.
Yeah.
Until I got a phone call that he was dying.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when I think about that, like, if I was action-oriented longer, I wouldn't have been in the position where I felt like I had run out of time.
Right.
You know, obviously there's tact and there's wisdom and stuff like that. But when I think of the big things too,
it's huge.
You never know when an opportunity is going to run out.
Right. So tell the person you love them now.
Yeah.
Share Jesus with them now. You know, be an encouragement now. When you think of something good to do
it now.
Let's do it. Yeah. As we have therefore opportunity, Galatians 6:9, right? Yeah. Let us do good. Yeah. Right? The opportunity's there. So we'll go for it. I love that. I think that's a great way for us to finish up. Maybe I can just add one other piece to this. The thing I've been thinking about that I think would be an encouragement to people is that for me, if I start the day with a good God, if I start my day with worship, with just reflecting on His goodness, on His grace, His forgiveness, His love for me, then I tend to live my day in that adventure.
Absolutely.
If I skip that in my day and just head into the day, I tend to live with my cards too close and with a scarcity mentality. So that'd be a big piece for me to live out Matthew 25.
Absolutely. And I think one practical way, you know, to be engaged with that, you could read your Bible when you wake up in the morning. You could use your Bible app. One thing that I started doing is because my eyes quite aren't there. Cognitive isn't quite there in the morning. I've been listening to an audio Bible.
Right. Yeah.
There's an app on the App Store, at least for Apple. The App Store there is called Daily Audio Bible.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to that for the last few days, and it's been so helpful to get me.
Right. It just gets you into that right space, and it keeps you in the Word, but without sort of forcing you to do something that your body's not ready to do yet.
You know, I'll read later.
Right.
But for the 30 minutes, I'm kind of going about my house, getting ready, preparing my day. I'm listening, and it goes through the Bible, I think, in a year. And so, that's been really helpful for me. So if you're looking for something, I think
that's fantastic. Isaiah 60 says, "Arise, shine. For your light has come." And then it says this, "For the glory of the Lord has risen upon you." It's when God's glory rises on you that you can rise and shine. Right? So it's like, I want to rise and shine today. I want to rise and shine and be a blessing to my wife, be a blessing to my kids, be a blessing at work, at the store. But, you know, some days I'm like, I just want to go crawl in a hole. No, I don't want to rise and shine. Well, how do I get to the point where I'm ready to rise and shine? Well, let the glory of the Lord shine upon you. And then you're going to go out and shine. You're going to be the church unleashed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every morning's an opportunity.
Thanks, man. It's fun.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a great week, everybody.